Hey guys, welcome back. Scripture here with another video, and I did a little digging into just how the whole Acolyte situation has come about from the beginning, because I was really confused. I started thinking about timelines and how they came about this idea that this was a good idea and what was really going on. So what I found was super weird is, so first of all, they're making a movie that they're drawing off of the High Republic era of Star Wars, right? Now, this, of course, started with books that came out. Charles Soule wrote the first one. Obviously, he's written Star Wars content before and is fairly popular. And they started this new era of Star Wars with these novels. And it's, I guess, akin to the EU in a way, right? Because it's a different era and it's in book form rather than film or television or what have you. These books started coming out in 2021. And so the first book, which is Light of the Jedi, came out, it debuted early January 2021. I don't know, January 1st it might have even been, in 2021. I'm like, okay, well, whatever, that's fine. So then I started looking at the book sales, and Bounding Into Comics has a really good article here. And what you realize is that, Out of the Shadows, but here's your book sales for release upon release of the High Republic era. And when I started looking at these book sales, I started saying to myself, wait a minute, like, why are they making a movie in this era in 2024? I guess it started production, maybe a year ago or something like that, so 2023. Up until that point, like long before they started production on this show, The Acolyte, which is taking place in this era, and has characters that are in these books, why would you start filming in 2023 when literally, I mean, I don't have the most recent numbers, but I can't imagine they're much better than this. You have to have a membership for this website to get the 2024. But I mean, look at how bad this got. The first book sold 120,000 copies, and it was $30 basically. Boom, the next one, 60,000. So what does that mean? That means, assuming that the 60,000 are fans of the High Republic. So 120,000 people buy the first book, but only half of that bought the second book. Does that mean that the people who bought the first book, that half of them probably didn't really like it? I would say could be very well true. Or at the very least, they were like, it was cool, but I don't want to get any more books, right? A whole pile of them. So especially when you consider these are series, these are taking place in that era, it stands to reason that if you're really into the book, you're going to buy the next book in the set, right? You're going to continue your reading. A lot of people did that with the EU. A lot of people do that with a lot of different books, whether it's Narnia, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, whether it's name the books, name the IP. If they really like a book in the series, they tend to continue reading books from that series. And so, again, I go to it. So you had a 50% drop. The next book stayed around the same. Claudia Gray's Into the Dark stayed about the same. And then they brought Charles Soule back for Light of the Jedi. So I don't know if this is a re-release here of Light of the Jedi again in about 6 months after they released. Yeah, so it was January 1st. Yeah, about 7 months after they released Light of the Jedi. It looks like they re-released it. I don't know if that's 100% sure. So total, it sold, upwards of 160,000 copies. But you start going down this, and The Fallen Star, 35,000. Then you just see this massive drop. So Claudia Gray did okay in her first book. It wasn't good at all, but it was, you could argue it was sort of like a break-even moment at 60,000. But her subsequent title, The Fallen Star, almost half of that. And then you just see this massive drop. And by the time you get to July, so 7 months after the release of Light of the Jedi, the very first title, sales have dropped. You've gone from 120,000 to 22,000. Like, that's insane. And so this is a clear indicator that people just aren't into the High Republic. They gave it a shot, right? Star Wars fans gave it a shot. They spent some money and bought some books, particularly the first one. And then the second and third were not too bad. Then it kind of drops off a bit. It's still not a total disaster, but by the time you get to the Tempest Runner, it's a joke. The Race to Crash Point Tower is... And look at the price on that. The Race to Crash Point Tower is half the cost of Charles Soule's original Light of the Jedi and did 20,000 compared to 120,000. And then if you add in the re-release, 160,000 to 20,000. And it's half the price. Like, look at this. The last book that we have on this list in 2022 was $27. It did less than 14,000. And Claudia Gray, who has a bit of a following, Hers at $28.99, same as Charles, so $35,000. So all that to say, this is a massive drop. This is a massive drop off. In this article, you look at Zahn's Heir to the Empire trilogy had sold over 15 million copies in 2014. 15 million. And we're talking about 160,000 for the High Republic. So you would think, from a logical point of view, right? Logical business perspective, you would say to yourself, like, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the EU, but I do like some of it. And Heir to the Empire is pretty good. It's not great, in my opinion. But then again, I'm biased. I'm always comparing everything to the OT, which is super awesome. But the EU certainly does Luke a lot more justice and Han and Leia and everybody a lot more justice than the sequels. It would have been far better. I might not have loved it, but I could certainly live with it and say, hey, it's fine. It's not bad. It's no worse than the prequels for sure, right? And I think a lot of people are in that boat, a lot of my buddies and stuff. But here you have this Zahn trilogy, 15 million copies, and you don't think about maybe we should make that the sequel trilogy? Even though everybody doesn't love it, it is beloved among many Star Wars fans. 15 million copies of a book. That has to equate to a $2 billion box office run in the movies. Would have to. So, and I understand that Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill were a little bit older. I would have been fine if you did the Timothy Zahn series with new actors playing them. I would have been perfectly fine with like a Sebastian Stan, as long as you can get Luke's mannerisms and stuff. He looks exactly like him. He's the right age. I would have been perfectly fine with that. Or if they even de-aged and they did it properly and it didn't look crappy, I could have totally gone for that. That would have been perfectly fine. But instead, they did their own sequels, and now they're doing this Acolyte show based on the High Republic that doesn't sell. So is this just insanity or is this arrogance? And I suspect it's the latter. I think that Kathleen Kennedy and the executives who control everything, I mean, the amount of producers on these shows is nuts. They completely control the directors. They don't just hand these films and shows over to the directors and say, do it. You look at, Gary from Nerdrotics turned me on to this the other day. I was like, wait a minute. And I started looking into it. It's just producerville. There's nothing but producers on everything, controlling what the executives want. And keep in mind, that's the same Disney executive board that is still there. None of them got voted out after all these failures. That is a failure, to not use Timothy Zahn's sequels and then go into it completely blind with something completely different, and then shoehorn in Palpatine coming back, which is another EU idea, which I don't like. I want Palpatine to stay dead, but I'm just saying, those were good selling books, best selling books. These are not. And it's crazy to me that they didn't do this. And I don't know if there's some kind of royalties or something involved with Lucas. I don't know. But at the end of the day, even still, what a mistake that was. But there's even more to this, okay? There's another point to this that's the main point that points to just the utter arrogance of the guys running Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy and all those people, and the Disney executives whom she works for. So not only did they choose to do an Acolyte show, knowing full well that no one likes the High Republic, that people who even bought the book did not rebuy any more of the books, or a very tiny percentage. You're talking about a 90% drop in sales. So that means that the vast majority of people buying those books get sick of them very, very quickly and don't buy any more books, except for a tiny, tiny 10% that bought the first book. Right? That's basically what we're saying here. Yeah, so it's Initiative's first wave of books to its second wave, and determined that Star Wars High Republic saw 90% to 95% drop in sales between the launch with Light of the Jedi and the current High Republic novels, barely over 2 years. And I don't know what they're doing now, but I'm sure they're not doing any better. But here's the kicker. This is what's so wild to me. Kathleen Kennedy announced the Acolyte, which is in the High Republic era, which the High Republic books were supposed to inform, right? So, like, the idea was, you've read the people that have read the High Republic books are going to be super hyped for the Acolyte because they've read the books and they're into the characters and all that stuff. Although the sales are a joke. I mean, 15 million compared to 120 or 160,000. Who's watching this show? But get this. Kathleen Kennedy was so arrogant about her High Republic project and the Acolyte that they announced the Acolyte 7 months before Charles Soule's Light of the Jedi even was released. And the Acolyte is in that era. Think of how arrogant and stupid you have to be. These people, the inmates are running the asylum over at Disney. Like, this blew my mind when I looked into it this morning. I said, wait a minute, how the heck do you announce a show and you have, and you're just deciding that the High Republic's going to be a thing? I just decided the High Republic's going to be a thing. Everybody's going to love it, so I'm going to announce a show before I even release a single book from the High Republic. What? And then after they saw all these dismal sales all the way through 2022, they still went forward with it. Like, are these executives out of their minds? Anyone invested in Disney right now is completely out of your mind. If you even have 2 shares, you're nuts. It's a disaster what they're doing. Anyway, I just couldn't believe this, guys. I couldn't believe it. Like, so you let me know in the comment section, like, is this just pure arrogance? Or is this just stupidity? Or is this, like, what is this that you would announce this show without knowing whether the audience even cares about this era, and then you find out this they don't care about this era, and you don't cancel it? You canceled Rogue Squadron. You've canceled all these shows. Nobody even knows what's going on with Skeleton Crew. As far as I know, it's finished filming for like a while now, and there's been nothing. So, almost like because they're afraid to put it out because it sucks or something. But this one you're going through with, when you actually have prior knowledge that it's going to be a failure, and we see that with the ratio on the trailer, which is 650 dislikes or whatever to 200,000 likes. That's insane. That nothing in Disney Star Wars comes close to being that bad. So there's a clear picture here. No one cares about the High Republic era, but they went through with it anyway. And they spent who knows how many hundreds of millions on this show. And it's just, and the promotion's been a disaster. They can't just sit up and say, oh, this is going to be a great show. The story's so good. It's so awesome. They always preface every interview with, it's going to be, diverse. And, they basically say social politics is what it's all about. Oh, and then there's this story afterwards that you're going to like. It's like, what are they thinking? So let me know in the comments that you think, guys. Like I said, is this arrogance or incompetence? And do you even care about this show? And like I said in my previous video, I think it's just hate watching at this point for most people because it's so bad and so funny. But again, let me know in the comments section what you think, guys. Thanks for watching. If you do like this content, please like and subscribe. It always helps the channel. And I just want you to know I really appreciate you guys supporting me. And it's really helped. And like I always say, if you are new to the channel, feel free to check out anything else and have yourselves a really good day.